What is permanent residency? And what are the benefits? Is it the same thing as citizenship? Oh my god, I can't get my head around this point system. Hey guys, this is Pawan. If you're thinking about migrating to Australia, you might have had these questions at some point. So in this video, I'm aiming to answer them all, so make sure you watch it till the end. So what is permanent residency? Well, permanent residency allows you to live and work in the country indefinitely. It's not the same as citizenship. You can still be a citizen of another country and a permanent resident of Australia. For example, I myself am a permanent resident of Australia, but still a citizen of India. I still hold my Indian passport. So basically, permanent residency allows you to stay in the country indefinitely. You can leave and come back whenever, as long as the COVID restrictions allow. Now, what are the benefits of permanent residency of Australia? Well, first of all is the peace of mind. You don't need to keep applying for different visas to stay in the country. Going from one visa to the other is rather draining both mentally and financially. All that stress you go through for the paperwork and paying fee for different visas and the expensive migration agent, and not to forget those expensive health examinations. The second one is free healthcare. Permanent residents can enroll in Australia's national health scheme called Medicare. You no longer have to pay for that expensive health insurance because once you have your Medicare card, you can basically seek medical services for free in the country. Some people still like to go for the private health insurance, but that's completely optional. As a permanent resident, you can work for any employer in any industry. You have full working rights. You can choose to work for anyone at any time. And in any sector in Australia, someone with a permanent residency status will always be preferred over someone who is on a temporary visa. Australian citizens and permanent residents can visit, work and live in New Zealand. You won't need to apply for a visa before you travel to New Zealand. How great is that? Pathway to Australian citizenship. You can potentially become an Australian citizen after being a permanent resident. Not everybody goes for it, but you can if you want to. In order to be eligible, you should have lived in the country for at least 4 years, including 12 months as a permanent resident. First home owner's grant. As an Australian permanent resident, you have access to the first home owner's grant, which is currently worth $10,000. That can be used to buy your first home in Australia, be it an apartment, a townhouse, or a house, as long as the total worth of the property is less than $750,000. And last but not the least, as an Australian permanent resident, you can sponsor your relatives to come to Australia. Now, what's the difference between being a permanent resident and being a citizen of Australia? Well, in addition to all the things that I mentioned before, a citizen of Australia is firstly allowed to vote. Not just allowed to vote, you have to vote. It's mandatory for citizens in Australia to vote. If you fail to vote without giving a valid reason, you'll be fined for it. And secondly, as an Australian citizen, one would have an Australian passport, which is the 8th strongest passport in the world. And it allows you to travel to over 180 countries visa-free. And thirdly, as an Australian citizen, you can serve in the armed forces. Given its high standard of living and potential growth opportunities, Australia has been one of the most desired destinations to migrate to. Permanent residency visas are generally granted to skilled workers, their family members, and foreign investors who choose to invest in businesses in Australia. Now, skilled workers are selected through a skill select program, and it follows a point-based system. So basically, if you possess a skill that the country is facing a shortage of, you can express your interest to apply for permanent residency. Skilled Occupational List is a list of professions or skills that are most in demand in Australia. It gets updated every now and then. So if you're aspiring to migrate to Australia and you're wondering how you can acquire the permanent residency, you need to know how the point system works. It is so simple and transparent that you can actually check your eligibility online, and permanent residency points can be earned based on your current educational, English skills, and employment background. 65 points is the minimum score you need to possess in order to lodge an expression of interest for your permanent residency application. And having a score of 90 or above would mean that you would be invited in a short period of time. Now, as a skilled individual, you could apply for one of the following visas. Skilled Independent Visa, which is subclass 189, Skilled Nominated Visa, which is subclass 190, and Skilled Work Regional in brackets Provisional Visa, which is subclass 491. Now, there are 10 criteria for which the permanent residency points are awarded. Firstly, age, English language skills, employment experience, educational qualifications, specialist education qualification, Australian study requirements, professional year in Australia, credentialed community language, study in regional area, whether you are single or married or have a partner, and your partner skills. Now let's go through each of these categories and I'll try and explain as much as I can. Now while I go through all these categories, you can actually calculate your own points and see what else you can do for a better score. Okay, so let's calculate the points for permanent residency now. So this is the points table that you need to look at when you're calculating your points for a permanent residency. This is one of the permanent residency visas, subclass 189, and these are all the categories that you will be looking into. So the first one is age. So let's say if you fall into the category of between 18 years to 25 years of age, you'll be getting 25 points towards your permanent residency application. The maximum number of points you can get for your age is 30. That's between the age of 25 and 33 years old. The next one is between 30 years and 40 years of age, which is 25 points, and between 40 and 45 is 15 points. The next category is English language skills. So if you have competent English, which is IELTS score of 5 in all the components of the test, you won't be getting any points towards your application. But if you have proficient English, which is at least 65 points in the PTE examination or a score of 7 in all the components of the English exam IELTS exam, then you'll be getting 10 points towards your permanent residency application. But if you have the superior English, you'll be getting 20 points. So superior English is when you have 8 in IELTS in all the components of the test, or if you have 79 and above in PTE examination, you'll be getting 20 points. And I highly recommend going for PTE examination and getting the 79, because this is like an easy way of scoring more points for your permanent residency application. The next one is skilled employment experience. So if you have worked overseas before and while you are applying for your permanent residency application, you have some experience outside of Australia, you can claim some points for that. If you have less than 3 years of experience, you won't be able to claim any points. But if you have at least 3 years but less than 5 years of experience, then you can get 5 points for it. But if you have more than 5 years but less than 8 years, then you get 10 points. And if you have 8 years, then you get 15 points. So that's the overseas skilled employment experience outside of Australia. The next one is Australian skilled employment experience. So this is obviously in Australia. So if you have less than 1 year of experience in Australia, then you won't be getting any points. But if you have between 1 to 3 years of experience in whatever profession you are, you can claim 5 points for it. And then again, between 3 years and 5 years, you get 10 points. And between 5 and 8 years, you get 15 points. And if you've got 8 years of experience, which is a lot of experience, you get 20 points for it. The next one is educational qualifications. So if you hold a doctorate degree from an Australian educational institution or a doctorate from another educational institution that is of a recognized standard, you get 20 points. And if you have at least a bachelor degree from an Australian educational institution, which most of us do, then you get 15 points for it. But if you have a diploma or a trade qualification from an Australian educational institution, you get 10 points for it. If you've attained a qualification or award recognized by the relevant assessing authority of your nominated skilled occupation as being suitable for that occupation, you get 10 points for it. But in regards to nursing, most of us will fall into this category because we have got a bachelor degree. Those of you who've done a diploma will fall into this category. The next one is specialist education qualification. So this is for those who've done a master's degree. So a master's degree by research or a doctorate degree from an Australian educational institution that included at least 2 years of academics years of study in a relevant field. That's 10 points towards your application. The next one is Australian study requirement. So if you meet the Australian study requirement, you get 5 points for it. So which means you must have at least one degree, a diploma or a trade qualification from an Australian educational institution that meets the Australian study requirement. Then you get 5 points. The next one is professional year in Australia. So completion of professional year in Australia gives you 5 points. Now many nursing graduates get confused between this one, whether or not this is something that they can claim, but this is not for nursing. It clearly says to be eligible for the award of these points, your professional year must have been in accounting. This is for IT, accounting, computing, not for nursing. So be mindful of that. The next one is credential community language. So this is for those of you who are fluent in another language than English. For example, I'm fluent in Hindi and Punjabi. So I went for the credentialed community language test in Punjabi and I acquired 5 extra points for it. So basically they say hold a recognized qualification in a credentialed community language, then you get 5 points for it. It's very easy, the test itself. It cost about $800 to sit, but totally worth it because this is an easy qualification you can attain to get 5 extra points towards your permanent residency. The next one is study in regional Australia. There are many international students actually studying, they're preferring to study in a regional Australian university because they get 5 extra points for it directly. They don't have to do anything for it, which is great. So basically you must have at least one degree, diploma or a trade qualification from an Australian educational institution that satisfy the Australian study requirement obtained while living and studying in an eligible area of regional Australia. So not all rural areas that you might think of fall into the regional area. You have to sort of do your research and make sure the university you're looking at to study in a regional area is actually falling under the category of regional area. Because if it is not, then you won't be able to get claim those points. So make sure that is, and these are like the easiest points you can get towards your permanent residency application in the end. The last one is your partner skills. So if you have a spouse or a de facto partner, you can claim their like English score and stuff like that. So let's go through it. So if they are under the age of 45 years old and they have competent English, which is IELTS score of 5 in all the components of the test, then they can claim 10 points. Sorry, not just that. They had to be in a nominated skilled occupation that is on the same skilled occupation list as your nominated skilled occupation, and had a suitable skills assessment. So let me just explain this here. For example, let's say you are a nurse from India and your husband or wife is also a nurse from India, and you both are applying. You are the primary applicant, but your husband or your partner is also part of your application for the permanent residency, and he or she is obviously in the same skilled occupational list as they say here, then you can claim these points as long as they've sat an English test and have got the competent English and under the 45 years of age. You can claim 10 points for it. But if they are not from the same profession, let's say, but they have just given the English test and they've got 5 each in IELTS or 50 in all the components of the test in the PTE, then they can claim 5 extra points for it. But if you're a single or your partner is an Australian citizen or permanent resident, then you can claim 10 points for it. So guys, that's the point system. You can see how transparent it is. You can literally go online and look at all these categories and calculate your points like right now. And you can also see what are the areas you can improve in. For example, the English language skills. You can, for example, if you have proficient English with getting 10 points for it, you can go and sit the English exam again and get 8 each in IELTS, or alternatively, you can go and sit the PTE examination and try and get the 79 score in all the components of the test, and then you will be in the superior English category and getting 20 points towards your permanent residency application. That's one way of doing it. The other way is you can go and sit the community language, the credentialed community language test, which, as I said, if you are fluent in any other language other than English, you can go and sit this test, which costs about $800, but it's totally worth it because you get 5 extra points towards your application. So that's something you can do. So yeah, that's the point system. You need at least 65 points to be eligible to apply for permanent residency, which means to lodge an expression of interest. But the more points you have, the better, because that means your application will be picked up a lot quicker. So guys, I hope I've answered all your questions, but if you do have any, please leave them in the comment box below. And if you're aspiring to come to Australia, you need to check this video out over here, which is 10 things you should know about Australia. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you still haven't subscribed, please do so. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.